After successfully rescuing the troublesome student, they began to run quickly towards the coast to board their ship and leave. However, Koby suddenly turned back to save someone and fell into a trap set by the pirates. Just as Shiryu lunged to attack him, Garp jumped in to shield his beloved student, taking a fatal blow that severely injured him. Despite his severe injury, Garp still tried to hold back Kuzan so that everyone could escape. Pizarro, from above, used his island fruit ability to create a giant hand, intending to crush their ship and cut off their retreat. Garp lay still on the ground, reassuring, "Koby, don't panic. Justice will always prevail." Koby recalled a few weeks prior, when their attempt to capture Boa on the women's island failed, and their comrades were captured by Blackbeard. He and the others could only watch helplessly, as they needed orders from above to engage a Emperor. After a period of internal struggle, Koby decided to meet Blackbeard. Vice Admiral Yamakaji couldn't stop him because he was a member of SWORD. When Blackbeard saw Koby, he was very interested. "Isn't this the hero Koby? You want a war to rescue your comrades, right?" Koby requested that Blackbeard leave behind the captured Marines and a warship in exchange for him as a hostage. Blackbeard laughed, believing Koby overestimated his worth. Flashback to the past, at the old headquarters. Garp was teaching his students their first lesson. You discover an old man and a child. If the boat can only carry 2 people, what would you do? Koby said, "I would get off the boat to let them leave." Garp immediately threw a piece of chalk at his head, scolding, "Wrong, you idiot. It's better to leave the old man behind because he doesn't have much longer to live." The female instructor behind them reminded him, but Garp still maintained his point. "What do you want to act for when you become the future of the Navy? The future of mankind, right? Then you have a very long future ahead of you compared to the old man. So you and the child must live." The female instructor angrily hit Garp's head, saying, "Everyone is equal." But he argued that the future of youth was limitless. Back to the present. On Hachinosu Island, Pizarro's giant hand reached out from the island. The cannon fire from the ship had no effect. Everyone on the ship knew they couldn't withstand that hand. Tashigi ordered everyone to prepare to jump into the sea, prioritizing the safety of the civilians on the island. Koby was terrified because if that giant hand slammed down, hundreds of civilians and Marines would die. What do we do? At this moment, the image of the ship being crushed flashed through Koby's mind, and he was extremely frightened. Suddenly, Garp, who was lying on the ground, spoke up. "You can save them right now. I will create an escape route in a flash. Koby, go destroy that monstrous hand. Grass, protect the ship from the falling debris when it's destroyed. Hello, provide cover and ensure the safety of those 2 at all costs." Hearing this, Koby was unsure if he could do it. Garp immediately said, "Never doubt yourself in a critical moment. Go." Upon hearing this, the 3 disappeared from that place. The pirates behind them showed contempt for their actions, believing that without old Garp, they were just useless trash. They call him a hero, but he's just a naive rookie who's been polished up. On the other side, Gruss thought Koby had prepared explosives to destroy the hand, but Koby said, "I don't have any." Below, as the pirates fired cannonballs toward Koby and Gruss, Helmeppo recalled Garp's words and leapt forward, slashing and detonating one of the cannonballs midair. Up above, Koby felt deeply anxious, but Gruss told him not to look back. At Garp's location, Kuzan approached, asking how far Garp thought he could run with such injuries. Garp dismissed it, saying it was just a scratch, nothing to fuss over. Kuzan remarked that he'd just told him not to worry, yet here he was concerned for Garp. Suddenly, Garp surged forward, telling Kuzan he was still too green. Garp unleashed a devastating punch that shattered the ground beneath Kuzan, then moved in a zigzag pattern at incredible speed, charging straight toward Pizarro. Gathering strength in his arm, Pizarro tried to stay focused as Garp closed in. But Garp got within striking range and unleashed Galaxy Divide, firing a blinding beam that split Pizarro's skull-like face in 2. Taking a heavy blow, Pizarro's massive arm rose from the ship. Below, Gruss realized this was the escape route Garp had mentioned and asked Koby what he planned to do. Looking up at Garp and recalling his words, that Koby was the future of the Marines, Koby resolved to live up to those expectations. He leapt into the air, moving at lightning speed using the 6 powers techniques. Above, Pizarro was furious. "You think that's enough to stop me, you damned old man? I'll show you the consequences of crossing me. Watch closely, I'll slaughter them all. You can't save them in time." Floating midair, Garp remembered asking Helmeppo why Koby, despite his rapid progress lately, was always wrapped in tattered bandages. Helmeppo replied that Koby had told him not to say anything, but recently, Koby felt he was still weak compared to everyone else. He'd been training 10 times harder, and when that wasn't enough, he pushed himself 100 times more. Garp was stunned. After the special training program with him, Koby had been sneaking off to train even more. Helmeppo confirmed it, saying Koby never skipped a day, punching battleship bags all night until his hands bled. At that moment, Koby was pushing his speed to the limit, desperately trying to reach the giant hand beneath the ship. As despair set in, everyone suddenly saw Koby's silhouette appear ahead. The pirates below scoffed, mocking Koby's delusions of grandeur and his hero title, while the Marines urged him to run as far as he could. Pizarro, brimming with confidence above, declared they wouldn't escape once he smashed the ship, and if they fell into the sea, Kizaru would freeze them. But Koby, resolute, told himself he had to succeed, or everyone would die because of him. "I'm not someone with natural fighting talent. If 10 times the effort isn't enough, I'll give 100, because of the ideals I live for." Below, Kizaru, tired of waiting for the main character, ordered everyone to prepare to jump into the sea, joking that the movie was almost over. Finally, Koby clenched his fist and unleashed a move he'd learned from Garp, Honesty Impact. The punch erupted with immense force, piercing through the giant arm and shattering it into fragments midair, lighting up the sky. The crew below couldn't close their mouths in awe as the arm crumbled and fell. Garp laughed uncontrollably, while Gruss marveled at when Koby had gained such power. Using his clay ability, Gruss wove a net to shield the ship from the falling debris. As Koby landed, Helmeppo leapt up and hugged his friend tightly, overjoyed. "You did something incredible. You smashed a hand as big as a mountain." After all these years, their friendship hadn't changed. The Marines below cheered Koby's name like a hero, and Hibari, unable to hold back, rushed forward to hug and thank him affectionately. Now they just awaited Vice Admiral Garp's return to the ship to retreat. But suddenly, Garp called out, "The mission to rescue Koby is complete. Everyone on the ship, withdraw from Hachinosu immediately. I'll handle things here. The most important thing now is that you're all safe, right? One day, this event will serve as a warning shot to every pirate out there. Move forward for the ideals of saving people, because you are the future of the Marines, not an old man like me." At that moment, Kizaru impaled Garp with an ice spear through the wound Shiryu had dealt earlier. Though defeated, Garp smiled with satisfaction. This morning's newspapers wrote of the return of the young hero Koby and the uncertain fate of the legendary Vice Admiral Garp. In the end, the raid on the island and the future of Emperor Luffy would shake the world after these shocking events. Newspapers spread everywhere, with tabloids accusing Luffy of kidnapping Vegapunk to seize an island in the East Blue at Windmill Village. The people there grew anxious hearing Garp's fate at Pirate Island was unclear. The mayor, however, seemed unfazed, saying Garp had built countless legends about himself. The villagers nodded in agreement, smiling, until a loud laugh interrupted, angering the mayor. "What's so funny?" It was his grandson, Whoop Slap, forcing the mayor to calm him down and apologize, unaware Makino was listening. Still, she worried for Garp, though the kid had grown fond of Luffy lately, truly admiring him. Meanwhile, Dayton cried her eyes out, while others insisted Garp was surely dead, making her wail louder. She couldn't understand what those two reckless fools were up to. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently, knocking everyone over. Across the east, south, west, and north blues, people panicked as earthquakes and massive tsunamis struck without warning. No quake in history matched the intensity felt that day, causing immeasurable destruction worldwide. At the Grand Line, Laboon the whale cried out in distress. The untraceable seismic event affected everywhere, from Water 7 to Wano. Since Lulusia Kingdom vanished without a trace 6 days earlier, a gaping hole replaced it on the map with seawater pouring in endlessly, an inaccessible void showing no signs of closing. The global sea level rose by about 1 meter. At the Revolutionary Army's base, confusion reigned. The shoreline had never encroached this far. If it were a tide, it should have receded by now. Their sea-based goals were ruined, with many islands fully submerged, homes now shark dens. In Windmill Village, the rising water seemed like a flood season, and some fishermen wanted to head out, only to be stopped due to the danger. Meanwhile, at Egghead Island in the New World, the Navy mobilized a fleet under a national emergency order, larger than even Buster Call scale, with 100 warships of all sizes surrounding the island, led by 30,000 troops under 9 admirals, commanded by Admiral Kizaru, Yellow Monkey. A mechanical sea beast lunged, biting a Navy ship, but a flash of light shot through it, Kizaru piercing the creature in an instant. Inside the island, Sentomaru raged at his uncle for attacking the robotic beasts. Kizaru retorted, "It attacked us first," then casually sat on the beach eating ramen. All Seraphim were in position, ready to fight alongside the sea beasts. Kizaru urged Sentomaru to surrender and join him, but Sentomaru threatened to retaliate, revealing Vegapunk had crafted lasers for the pacifistas based on Kizaru's powers, never imagining his own uncle would come to eliminate his friend Vegapunk. Kizaru warned Sentomaru he couldn't shield him if they dug into the void centuries history. He was just following government orders. This battle offered no gain, destruction only bred loss. Kizaru was certain Luffy's crew had foiled Lucci's assassination mission with the Straw Hats' interference. On a warship, Doberman reported Luffy was engaging in combat. Sentomaru instructed them to avoid detection. He praised the tabloid headline, "Straw Hats Hold Dr. Vegapunk Hostage," crafted by Morton. Doberman added that Lucci hadn't completed the assassination. As Sentomaru guarded the lab, where 7 scientists, including Stella, the lead star, and 4 Seraphim protected their ally, the Straw Hat Pirates, an Emperor's crew with 9 elite members. The mission's spearhead, CP0's Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy, had failed, with remaining CP agents captured by Sentomaru's Pacifista Mar units. The island's barrier was at 80%, making entry or exit impossible. A day had passed without updates from within. Saturn asked where the researchers and Steph were, learning they'd evacuated yesterday, their locations confirmed. Saturn ordered any suspicious ships sunk immediately. Doberman added that the pirate Bonney was confirmed on the island. Saturn recognized her as Kuma's daughter, but dismissed her as irrelevant now, a mere child to ignore. Below the warships, Marines alerted Kizaru to a long-distance call from Egghead intercepted externally. At Muriajwa, another signal was caught. A Den Mushi on Kizaru's left wrist picked up the voice of York. She berated the ruthless old men for trying to eliminate her too, despite her risking everything to send intel on the lead star's betrayal. She claimed, "If I had any interest in the Void Century, I wouldn't have told them." Neuro, puzzled why CP0 hadn't arrived yet she still lived, asked about the Straw Hats. York declared Egghead hers. If the 5 elders attacked, the Seraphim would defend her. Jupiter shifted tone, saying he'd reconsider if she could produce flame samples. York grew excited. The elders were intrigued by the fire she'd sent earlier. She demanded the energy facility on the island be spared, along with her lab and herself, in exchange for it. Jupiter agreed. Her second request, to become a celestial dragon, was also approved. But mid-celebration, York froze in fear. Luffy's crew had found her. The 5 elders and Kizaru jolted, stunned. Zoro suggested slicing her without talk, making her scream for the elders to kill them all. Vegapunk apologized for the trouble she caused. Nami, now grasping the situation, asked Luffy what's next. "Still clueless," he said. "Just don't let the hostage escape," as the crew raided the island's food supplies to refuel. Frankie asked Chopper about Robin's injuries. She was fine, just needing rest. Robin thanked Chopper and the crew for saving Vegapunk. Usopp and Brook deemed York too treacherous. Even Vegapunk had been deceived all this time. They hoped to escape safely. Suddenly, Luffy asked Usopp for the Den Mushi, snatching it fast. He planned to use York as a hostage to break through and flee. Luffy announced, "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, future Pirate King. All the Vegapunks are here with me. If you care about York's life, withdraw your fleet from Egghead now." York, terrified, begged the elders for rescue, fearing the Straw Hats would kill her. Marines branded Luffy the ruthless emperor from rumors. Morgan, eavesdropping, was baffled by the chaos. Vivi, nearby, recognized Luffy's voice, worrying for him and the crew. Wapol couldn't believe Luffy dared threaten the world's most powerful figures, classic Luffy. Waka asked if anyone there was still alive. As Luffy mentioned some allies were injured, Robin cut him off. Jupiter, catching her voice, identified Nico Robin, the one they sought. She warned Luffy information was a critical weapon not to leak. Luffy apologized, boasting his words would scare the enemy into retreating. Holy Usopp grew furious because the Marines weren't the type to back down so easily. What a hopeless captain this guy is. Below on the warship, Saturn laid out 3 demands that must absolutely be met: the safety of York, the P recorder logs, and the energy facility for producing flame samples. Everything else could be sacrificed if necessary. Doberman questioned the status of Lucci's team and the CP agents still on the island. Saturn emphasized that he was only addressing the worst-case scenario, but stressed prioritizing the critical assets. To him, human lives were no more valuable than insects. However many were lost, they'd quickly replenish. On the other side, York was sobbing and threatening, claiming she had the 5 elders backing her. "Touch a single finger of mine, and the Straw Hats will be wiped off the map along with this island, just like O'Hara." No sooner had she finished than Nami whacked her on the head with her staff. The big sister was livid, 5 elders or not. She'd take them all on for daring to say that in front of Robin. Chopper, worried, asked about Robin's injuries, to which she thanked him, saying she felt much better thanks to him. Vegapunk also took the chance to express gratitude. Without everyone, York would have sent him to his grave. Chopper noted it was partly thanks to Kaku holding off the Seraphim in time. Kaku quickly clarified he'd only acted by accident while looking for Zoro, though he felt ashamed for not beating those Seraphim kids. Zoro, overhearing, taunted Kaku, claiming he'd saved his life from those 2 brats. Lucci, nearby, told the flustered Kaku to just sleep it off and recover instead of stirring trouble. At that moment, Edison spoke up, making Lilith cry tears of joy. She thought he was done for. Usopp seized the moment to contact the basement level and succeeded. The people there saw the Straw Hats as saviors for providing food in time. They requested to leave or move to another room, fearing the Seraphim might go berserk and wipe them out. Usopp asked Vegapunk, who confirmed the bubble shield mimicked sea prism stone's effects, rendering the Seraphim powerless. It was sturdy enough to rival Pacifista Mars shields and impervious to cannon fire. Suddenly, a snake spoke up. "They don't need to worry, we haven't received orders to eliminate them." Frankie praised the little girl, despite causing chaos. He was grateful for her help. Vegapunk, hearing this, was astonished that she'd acted on her own, unprogrammed. It all traced back to Luffy. Boa's love for him seemed embedded in every DNA strand. This made Jinbe chuckle. Boa, the most unapproachable woman in the world, melted before Luffy. And this Seraphim was no different. Intrigued by this inherited personality quirk, Vegapunk jotted it down in his notebook. Nami, using that bubble gun, had easily subdued the Seraphim with Lilith's help after escaping petrification, saving Sanji too. After everything, when Luffy thanked S-Snake, she hilariously misunderstood it as a love confession. The communication system was back online, but the barrier dome still showed no signal. Vegapunk worried they couldn't leave until it was deactivated. Suddenly, York burst out laughing, telling them not to waste time. She'd set a new password. Syncing the logs was pointless. She hadn't uploaded them. Lilith, enraged, lunged to punch the traitor a few times to vent. York boasted that with the code and government protection, she feared nothing. Luffy's face fell. His threats had no effect. They knew the world government never intended to spare them and would strike soon. Lucci, glancing over, noted 2 crews had lost 4 members and several were badly injured, while the Straw Hats were at a slight disadvantage. Kaku, seeing Lucci muttering, asked what was up, only for Lucci to say he was just talking to himself. Suddenly, Stussy burst in, informing Dr. Vegapunk they were completely surrounded. Estimates pegged it at around 100 warships of all types and roughly 30,000 troops under Admiral Kizaru's command. Hearing this, Vegapunk grew anxious, noting this was a massive military operation. Sanji, ever the charmer, offered Stussy coffee to celebrate her return. Stussy, annoyed by Lucci's constant staring, thought it understandable. Being betrayed by teammates for years would make anyone bitter. After grasping the situation, Vegapunk consulted Navigator Nami. She explained that although the log pose hadn't picked up a signal, they could still use this compass. She'd calibrated it in Wano. If it pointed northeast, that was Elbaf. 2 crewmates behind her cheered at the mention, thrilled to finally near the legendary giant island, breaking into song. Vegapunk outlined a plan. The Sunny was already on the experimental cloud layer. But with the coast sealed by Navy warships, they couldn't use the main port. To head northeast, they'd need to move behind the island. Luckily, Vega Frog was right there to lift the Sunny over the barricade. The catch? It relied on the climate system and would crash once outside the island. Frankie insisted that was enough. They could use the coup de burst to shoot 1 kilometer away. Vegapunk, learning the Sunny could fly that far with a cola engine, was incredulous, marveling at Frankie's invention. Lilith volunteered to guide Luffy's group to retrieve the ship, but the priority was cracking the code to lower the dome while York stayed silent. Feeling underestimated, Vegapunk, Atlas, and Edison dove into decoding, amateurs trying to outsmart experts. Usopp and Brook cheered, knowing success meant a smooth escape. Ultimately, Luffy's trio, Frankie and Bonney, would head with Lilith to fetch the Sunny. They left the lab, weaving behind to Vega Frog without prep, as the dome could drop any time. The enemy could strike at any moment, so they had to act fast. Lilith was ecstatic, her first time leaving the island. Luffy hauled a sack of food like it was a picnic, wanting more, saying, "Grab pizza and cheese. Sanji'll handle the rest." Bonney praised Sanji, great cook and fighter, making Luffy fume. This girl flipped attitudes too fast, totally different from yesterday. Turns out, Bonney no longer targeted Vegapunk, feeling lighter. Below on the warship, Lucci sent a briefing on the dome's interior. Kizaru met Saturn, dismissing Luffy's earlier bravado, now just a trapped rat. Saturn seized the chance. The dome's laser defense could be pierced by Kizaru, the light man, so he'd be sent in. Kizaru was confident, but noted one issue: dealing with his nephew siding with Vegapunk. Saturn told him to fly through, but Kizaru knew once Sentomaru committed, he'd fight to the end, no pushover. Finally, Kizaru asked Saturn to let him handle it his way. If he bypassed Sentomaru for a preemptive strike, Sentomaru would unleash sea beasts and the Pacifista fleet, sinking all warships and causing massive losses. Saturn, head aching, hoped it wouldn't drag on, then asked about the energy facility's location. Kizaru said Lucci, an ace agent, had sent all key intel. Outside, warships were in position, ready for battle. Vice admirals ordered anyone with 6 powers to storm the island when fighting began, swiftly rescuing CP operatives. Cannon fire was useless against pacifistas, so they'd target the sea beasts. Up on the island, Luffy playfully frolicked with clouds, prompting Frankie to remind him to focus. Below, Kizaru gazed at the island as Sentomaru recalled their happier times there. After a moment of nostalgia, Kizaru used his light mirror ability, shooting off like a refracted beam into the island. Sentomaru realized his uncle had arrived, ordering the pacifistas to wipe out all targeted warships. As he spoke, Kizaru zoomed in at blinding speed. Sentomaru deployed his strongest defense to block the kick, shaking the area with a dazzling flash. Above on the robot, the group spotted a massive light below. Luffy jolted, sensing a powerful presence. After the yellow monkey, Kizaru uses his light mirror ability to shoot forward like a refracted beam, infiltrating the island. Sentomaru realizes his uncle has finally arrived. He orders the pacifistas to annihilate all targeted warships. With that, Kizaru zooms in at blinding speed. Sentomaru employs his strongest defensive technique to block a kick, causing the area to quake and dazzle with light. Up above, the crew on the robot suddenly notices a massive beam of light below. Luffy jolts in shock, sensing a powerful presence nearby. Below, the uncle and nephew engage in close combat. Though Kizaru lands a kick, Sentomaru holds his ground and retaliates, determined not to let his uncle advance a single step. Both clash fiercely, unleashing attacks that trigger a blinding explosion of light. On the ship, Doberman reports that Kizaru has infiltrated the island, signaling the start of a grand battle. Knowing the pacifistas will resist fiercely, the Marines block their laser attacks by detonating cannon shells to obscure their vision, aiding the Admiral's infiltration. Unexpectedly, sea beasts lurk beneath the water, assembling a horde of hybrid creatures that wreak havoc, sinking numerous warships and causing massive losses. Vice Admiral Red King steps in, unleashing his devastating steam punch to take down a hippo beast. The pacifistas on shore detect this and fire their lasers, but Dolly intervenes with a kick to block them. She leaps up, delivering a crushing angled strike to knock out a pacifista instantly. The other admirals join forces to take down more pacifistas, minimizing damage to their warships. They pinpoint the laboratory's location, prioritizing the rescue of imprisoned CP agents inside. Usopp, witnessing the intense clash between Marines and sea beasts on the coast, sweats profusely. Vegapunk explains that as long as Sentomaru controls the pacifistas, the island's defenses are nearly impenetrable. The highest command hierarchy for the pacifistas is the Five Elders, followed by Vegapunk and his satellites, then Sentomaru, and finally the acting authority. Seeing Kizaru, the crew realizes he's the vanguard of this battle, as Stussy had warned. As they panic, Jack mocks them, only to be silenced by Zoro's blade at his throat. Brook feels the dark memories of the Sabati archipelago resurfacing, haunting them. Back then, they were helpless against the overwhelming power of light. Now, facing Kizaru again on this island, Vegapunk is distraught, apologizing to Sentomaru for forcing him to confront his uncle, a cruel twist. If Sentomaru fled, Vegapunk would understand, but for now they must unlock the dome, so Vegapunk sets the issue aside. Back to the battle, Kizaru moves at high speed, urging his nephew to surrender before unleashing a sky-shattering kick that sends him flying. He follows with Yasakani no Magatama, raining down a storm of light. Sentomaru can only flee, apologizing for breaking his promise to Straw Hat. Kizaru, baffled, questions when his nephew started colluding with pirates. Suddenly, Sentomaru grabs an axe, leaps up, and declares, "I owe Vegapunk my life. No matter what, I'll help him escape." He slashes at Kizaru, but as a man of light, Kizaru recovers instantly. They lock eyes, recalling a fond memory. In the flashback, a young Sentomaru defeats a gang of bears that Vegapunk and Kizaru were tasked to handle. It was their first meeting. Sentomaru bragged about taking them down with sumo skills, calling the villagers weak, and expressing dislike for returning there. Kizaru suspected the kid was chased out by the villagers. Sentomaru boldly asked for a well-paying job, boasting his toughness and lack of need for food. When Vegapunk asked what he'd buy with money, Sentomaru instantly said onigiri, making Kizaru and others burst into laughter. Reflecting now, Kizaru admits the kid was adorable. Vegapunk offered Sentomaru a job as his bodyguard, thrilling him. Sentomaru asked Kizaru to teach him moves to protect Vegapunk. Though annoyed at being called uncle, while young, Kizaru trained Sentomaru like a true nephew. Snapping back, Sentomaru lands a powerful blow, making Kizaru spit blood. Kizaru retorts that his defenses aren't weak, then unleashes a destructive light beam, blasting the area and knocking Sentomaru out completely. Though pained, Kizaru prioritizes duty. He picks up the authority chip, announcing that with Sentomaru down, he's taking command. The plan shifts. All pacifistas protect the warship fleet and eliminate the sea beasts. With a few shots, the sea monsters are wiped out. The Marines, seeing the threat gone, cheer, believing it's their chance to follow the vice admirals. Saturn finds it wasteful, but agrees the pacifistas are more valuable. Kizaru orders Doberman to update him on losses. Usopp panics upon learning Sentomaru's defeat. Nami calls Kizaru a heartless, unyielding man. Vegapunk, tears streaming, resolves not to waste the time Sentomaru bought by delaying the dome's deactivation. Jay laughs smugly, claiming they'll never crack his security. Vegapunk urges focus, warning that Kizaru, as a man of light, could bypass barriers anytime. Usopp wails, recalling how Kizaru nearly wiped out their crew before. Below, Kizaru smiles nostalgically, noting it's been a while since seeing the Straw Hats. He zips up to the laboratory. At Luffy's group, Lilith retrieves Vega Fox and guides them. Their task is to get the Sunny to the island's rear before the dome lowers. Bonney munches carefree, living by her motto of eating while she can, like Luffy. Frankie wonders how they eat anywhere, anytime. An alarm blares. Lilith is confused as no one should breach the laser barrier, except Kizaru, who does. He targets 3 priorities set by Saturn: protect Jay, the punk recorders, and the Mother Flame Factory, but above all, eliminate Vegapunk at all costs. Inside the lab, chaos erupts as Kizaru's presence is detected. Nami urges Usopp to contact Luffy, as the situation is tense. Vegapunk notes it's pointless to lower the barrier if the Sunny isn't in position. Stussy spots Lucci aiming for Vegapunk and shields him, collapsing from Lucci's Shigan to her stomach. Sanji, enraged, borrows Nami's bubble gun to trap Kaku for safety, noting Lucci seems to have abandoned him. Zoro charges at Lucci with blinding speed. Lucci counters with Haki, blocking with his leg. Zoro scoffs at the leopard, only acting tough with allies. Lucci claims that with him and Kizaru teamed up, the crew is doomed. Zoro, unleashing his power, retorts, "Don't underestimate us." He sends Lucci crashing through a wall and out of the lab. Nearby, Kizaru observes, noting Luffy's group and realizing why the Sunny isn't at the coast. Frankie asks Luffy what to do, but gets no reply. Luffy, acting faster than he thinks, leaps out of Vega Fox to confront Kizaru. Reading his old foe, Luffy charges and lands a kick. Kizaru remarks the kid is as reckless as ever. Luffy grins confidently, declaring, "My crew's 100 times stronger than we were at Sabati 2 years ago." One day before this, the Holy Land Mariejois was repeatedly shaken by explosions, with thick smoke rising everywhere, just before the arrival of the tyrannical slave Kuma, plunging the area into chaos. The celestial dragons frantically called on the guards to stop Kuma, but the cannonballs fired at him could not halt his advance. However, in the end, he collapsed from exhaustion. Still, when the guards began using countless iron chains to restrain him, their efforts were in vain because Kuma was immensely powerful. They couldn't comprehend why he was so determined to press forward despite everything. Suddenly, Kuma activated his ability, unleashing the Ursus shock, creating a massive bear paw that knocked down the guards and blew away everything in its vicinity. Amid this uncontrollable scene, the celestial dragons hurled curses. From a distance, Kuma sensed someone approaching. It was none other than Admiral Akainu. He demanded to know what Kuma was doing here, stating, "First, it was the Revolutionary Army, and now it's your turn." Akainu noted that the damage Kuma had caused was unprecedented. A guard who had just regained consciousness after fainting was kicked in the head by the celestial dragons, who then stomped on him, berating the guards as useless and blaming Akainu for failing to provide the lobster they demanded for dinner, as the food reserves had run out, an unprecedented event in history, with Mariégeois food supply depleted. The despicable celestial dragons then ordered Akainu to execute Kuma immediately. Upon hearing this, Akainu decided to eliminate Kuma on the spot, as he could no longer control him. He couldn't allow such a dangerous individual to remain free. However, Akainu was perplexed. Kuma's personality had been completely erased years ago, so why was he still trying to go somewhere? With that, Akainu charged forward, leaping into the air, and using his Hellfire attack, melting part of Kuma's face. Seeing blood flow, he couldn't believe that blood still ran through the body of a cyborg. Unexpectedly, Kuma turned and fled. Akainu unleashed a barrage of fiery punches to attack Kuma. Although Kuma attempted to escape, he was struck, with one of his legs set ablaze. With no other options, Kuma used his devil fruit power to disappear from the scene. Akainu couldn't pursue him and slowly walked forward, recalling the time he captured Bonney at Burning Island in the New World after learning she had escaped from the government. He said it sent chills down his spine, but now everything would end. No matter how much you scream, Kuma's consciousness will never return, as he willingly became a living weapon. Bonney couldn't believe it, calling Akainu a liar and insisting that her father would never abandon her like that. Meanwhile, the celestial dragons began cursing Akainu, mocking him as a useless admiral for letting a criminal escape. Akainu ignored their words, pondering to himself. Kuma had lost his thoughts and consciousness, no different from a puppet. So what was the motive behind these actions? Returning to the great battle at Egghead in the New World, the sea beasts had been completely eradicated by the most advanced Pacifista M3 units, sinking to the ocean floor. The Navy soldiers successfully landed on the factory layer to seize control of the island, while Admiral Kizaru advanced deep into the base on the lab layer in the clouds. Thus, the battle between the Admiral and the Fifth Emperor officially erupted. As Luffy activated Gear 5th, Snake, Kizaru countered with light, but he was pushed back. Suddenly, Luffy leaped up, transforming into Black Mamba, unleashing a flurry of strikes. Kizaru used 2 light shields to block, acknowledging Luffy's strength and understanding why Kato had been defeated. He deflected the attack and questioned why a pirate like Luffy would want to protect Vegapunk. Luffy casually responded by asking why Kizaru wanted to kill the apple-headed old man. Unexpectedly, Luffy continued using Snake, but Kizaru kicked him away, transforming into light and darting off the island at an immense distance. He replied, "I don't want to kill Vegapunk. We've known each other for a very long time. Now Luffy, don't meddle in this matter." With that, Kizaru turned his body into a beam of light and shot forward, confident that speed was his strength. The blinding light overwhelmed Luffy, impairing his vision, and he was struck by a powerful kick from Kizaru, sending him crashing straight into Vegapunk's fox without stopping, splitting it in 2. At that moment, Kizaru recalled the first time Vegapunk successfully created it, calling it the dream of humanity, a giant robot. After the collision, Luffy slammed into the energy barrier, causing an explosion, while Frankie and Bonney fell below. Lilith, inside the cockpit, had no idea what was happening. Fortunately, the Sunny landed safely without damage, and Bonney landed on Frankie, so she was unharmed. Lilith kicked open the door to escape, breathing a sigh of relief for still being alive, but then panicked. She ran to Frankie and Bonney, shouting for them to flee because Vegapunk's fox was about to explode. Even though they had fled far, the shockwave from the massive explosion sent all three tumbling. Seeing the robot destroyed, Lilith was furious. It was everyone's dream robot. Frankie, equally enraged, swore he wouldn't let Kizaru off easily. Meanwhile, Bonney was deeply worried for Luffy, who had been thrown far away. Kizaru slowly approached, looking at Bonney and commenting that she had grown so much, noting how quickly children grow these days. He introduced himself, saying he was there to eliminate Vegapunk, someone Bonney despised, so they shared a common goal. Suddenly, Bonney angrily declared, "I have a new goal now," and attacked with steel wires. But since Kizaru was a man of light, he easily dodged. He advised her to stop, saying he didn't want to harm another acquaintance. But as soon as he finished speaking, Bonney was kicked far away, crashing into the energy barrier and exploding just like Luffy earlier. Frankie, unable to hold back, used his radical beam, firing a laser from his chest to attack, but Kizaru had already vanished. Realizing Vegapunk was in danger, Frankie used a Den Mushi to contact the control room. After receiving the call, Usopp asked Frankie if he was okay, having heard a loud explosion earlier. Learning that the group was safe, Frankie sighed in relief since Kizaru hadn't reached them yet. Suddenly, Vegapunk's team was overjoyed. They had successfully deactivated the energy barrier. Now that wretched dog couldn't bark anymore, their faces filled with frustration. Vegapunk asked Jinbe and Sanji to go down to the lower level to retrieve his luggage, as it contained important items. He then informed Frankie that the barrier had been deactivated and asked if they had moved the Sunny to the back of the island yet. As Frankie hesitated, saying, "Everyone, get out of there now," Kizaru suddenly appeared behind them. He announced that Vegapunk's escape plan had failed. At his sudden appearance, everyone jumped in shock, unsure of when he had arrived. Usopp was so terrified that he fainted on the spot. Vegapunk asked about the earlier explosion, and Kizaru revealed that the dream robot they had built was now reduced to ashes. He hoped Vegapunk would understand, as this was no easy task, and he would act quickly. Just when they thought everything was settled, another explosion occurred. Luffy had risked his life to break through the barrier, his body nearly burned to a crisp. He began laughing cheerfully, saying, "I'm back." Kizaru, up above, couldn't believe it, his eyes darting in both directions, sensing something about to erupt. Below, Luffy activated Gear 5th, transforming into the sun god Nika, charging straight toward the lab. Frankie, seeing the sun god for the first time, had no idea who it was. Inside, everyone was trembling, huddling together, awaiting death, while Kizaru was equally panicked. Suddenly, Luffy appeared from behind in his giant form, grabbing Kizaru in the palm of his hand. Seeing this form for the first time, the crew's eyes nearly popped out of their heads. Kizaru, turning to see this form, was startled and exclaimed, "Here it is, this is Nika." Luffy scolded the old man for playing dirty, saying he had been kicked into the energy barrier twice, nearly burning to death. With the humorous appearance of the sun god Nika in a place no one paid attention to, beneath the scrap heap, the eyes of a giant robot, dormant for thousands of years, suddenly glowed, signaling an unprecedented awakening. The battle rages fiercely. Luffy brims with excitement after subduing the Light Admiral. His colossal foot nearly crushes comrades. Despite the disadvantage, Kizaru remains calm. Aware of his dire situation, the Admiral hopes for Luffy's mercy. "No way, old man." Luffy yanks Kizaru out, spinning him like a top toying with his foe. With a mighty heave, he hurls Kizaru from Vegapunk's lap. Usopp, Chopper, Atlas cheer wildly at Luffy's display. Seeing their captain's new form, Frankie beams with joy pride. As usual, after playing with his prey, the Straw Hat warrior dances, laughing heartily. Alarmed, others retreat before the Light Admiral returns. They move cautiously with Rob and Stussy. Edison fetches a stretcher for them. Atlas descends to seize control of the pacifistas. Without this, even if the dome opens, Max's lasers will incinerate all. No one outranks Vegapunk. Controlling the pacifistas is the key to victory. Through a monitor, Dr. Vegapunk spots Bonney alone, trapped below. He insists on joining Atlas to rescue her. Yusa protests as Vegapunk is the prime target and could easily perish. Unfazed, the scientist contacts Frankie, urging him to aid Bonney. She survived Kizaru's kick into the dome shield. Vegapunk scolds Frankie for letting the enemy reach her. Guilt-ridden, Frankie vows to rush to her side. Sanji, Jin, but Vegapunk's request pack supplies on building his second floor. They plan to escape via the rear exit and regroup later. Hearing Kizaru attacked Bonney, Sanji erupts in fury, his body ablaze. Unforgivable. He too wants to save the pink-haired girl. Vegapunk resolves to venture out, entrusting control to Edison, then leaves with Atlas. Frankie, guilt-stricken, feels he could have prevented Bonney's plight. Lilith urges action over worry, promising to handle things here. Regaining confidence, the Straw Hat's shipwright races to aid his ally. Lilith marvels at Luffy tossing Kizaru so far. Frankie swells with pride. Of course he'll never lose. Below, the Navy hunts Bonney in the factory. Hiding, she grips an iron rod, ready to fight. Transforming into a child, she ambushes soldiers with agile strikes. Her child form overwhelms them. Her supernova powers defeat many. Some turn into kids, others age into frail elders. The Navy grows wary as their numbers dwindle. Evading pursuit, Bonney hides exhausted, lightly injured. The Navy finds Sentomaru charred from Kizaru's attack and fall after shielding her. Drained, he urges her to flee, then collapses. Bonney hesitates, unsure whether to run or wait out the chaos. Back at the control room, Roronoa Zoro hunts Rob Lucci. The awakened beast lurks in bushes, stalking the Straw Hat swordsman. Lucci lunges from behind, sparking a cataclysmic duel. Both trade lethal blows without mercy. Luffy, surprised, watches Zoro clash with the beastman. They seem evenly matched. Zoro tells Luffy to focus on Kizaru, vowing to handle the traitor. Lucci's claws swipe furiously, but leave no mark on Zoro. The swordsman mocks Lucci's skill as far below his captain's. Lucci agrees, but sees value in defeating the Straw Hats' second in command. Though flung from Future Island, Kizaru stays calm. Nearing the sea, he propels himself skyward, unleashing Yasakuni no Magatama light beams. His body turns to light following the barrage. Luffy squints at the dazzling speck, stunned as they morph into countless Kizaru clones. The clones summon Ama no Murakumo's sword, slashing at Luffy. Luffy dodges the rapid assault, but a blade grazes his cheek. Wincing, he retaliates with a kick, downing a few clones. It's not enough. Turning giant, he swipes at Kizaru's true form. Kizaru nimbly evades, sprinting along Luffy's arm. Luffy puffs his cheeks, blowing a mighty gust, but the clones remain resilient. Unable to pinpoint the real Kizaru, Luffy leaps high. Clones pursue, falling into his trap. With a rubbery leap, he unleashes a move, felling them all. But he's outplayed. Kizaru sneaks into the control room, restraining Usopp. Luffy gapes, tricked by the Admiral. Frankie threatens Kizaru, who ignores him, tightening his grip on Usopp's mouth. Vegapunk, Atlas speed downward on the Vegatank. Sanji clings on, puzzled by Vegapunk's resolve. The scientist swears the Navy won't touch Bonney. She must not die. Luffy panics as Vegapunk exposes himself. Get inside or you'll die. Spotting his target, Kizaru tosses Usopp aside, aiming a laser at Vegapunk. Atlas frets, but Vegapunk refuses to divert. Luffy dives in, swallowing the deadly beam, saving Vegapunk's life. The laser scorches Luffy's insides. He screams, radiating light in agony. Frankie on the Vegatank tells Lilith to use General Frankie to move the Sunny. Vegapunk signals Edison to open part of the dome. Soldiers below spot him aiming rifles, ordering pacifistas to fire. As Vegapunk nears the clones, Edison reactivates the dome's barrier. Landing below, Atlas roars. All pacifistas obeying new orders eliminate every Navy soldier on this island. The Navy freezes in shock. Pacifistas turn, aiming lasers at their former allies. Saturn, aboard the ship, sat in silence. patiently waiting, not yet ready to take action himself. Once the command was issued, the pacifistas shifted their target, unleashing a barrage of laser beams that tore into the Navy, creating a merciless and devastating sweep. The Navy forces could only scramble to flee, desperate to escape if they didn't want to meet their end. Doberman, below deck, knew full well that Vegapunk had overridden the commands, reclaiming control. Meanwhile, the colonels were still clueless, unable to comprehend why they'd lost authority. They watched in confusion as Vegapunk actively descended to the lower levels. Vegapunk's group, on the other hand, was elated, sensing the tide of battle turning in their favor. Suddenly, Frankie panicked, baffled as to why they were heading straight down to the center, fearing the vehicle would plummet uncontrollably. Vegapunk quickly explained that the wheels of the Vega tank were crafted from Sky Island clouds, granting them adhesive properties, ensuring it wouldn't fall. The group leaned out, shouting and searching for Bonney as fast as they could, worried she was in danger. Sanji, focusing with all his heart and soul, activated his scanning mode. Abruptly, he announced he'd picked up Bonney's signal using his Lady Radar, leaving the group skeptical. Vegapunk, seeing Sanji's genuine seriousness, decided to take a gamble. Though the radar seemed unscientific, he chose to trust it. Suddenly, Sanji leaped out, declaring the vehicle too slow to keep up with the rhythm of his heart. With blinding speed, he dashed ahead. Below, Bonney felt a flicker of relief as the pacifistas had switched to her side, but the joy was short-lived. Vice Admiral Bonsky spotted her and attacked. Soldiers soon surrounded her, and in the heat of danger, Bonney unleashed a move called near-death experience. The attack plunged the soldiers into a harrowing sensation of dying and reviving, shattering their will to fight. Seizing the moment, Bonney fled, only to be blocked by a pacifista. As confusion gripped her, Vice Admiral Bluegrass appeared behind her. Possessing the power of the Nori Nori fruit, Bluegrass could control anyone she rode, turning them into a fearless rider, even without authorization. Bluegrass aimed to eliminate Bonney to dispel the cursed abilities affecting the Navy soldiers and restore their lifespans. Facing the pacifista's onslaught, Bonney stood frozen, overwhelmed by memories of her father. As a laser beam neared, Sanji swooped in just in time, shoving her out of harm's way. He urged her to stay alert, warning that if she couldn't accept Kuma as a cyborg, she'd end up dead. Suddenly, Admiral Bonsky reappeared, wielding a fan and delivering a crushing blow from above. Sanji, quicker, dodged it. Bluegrass rushed to assist, but was intercepted by pacifistas blocking her path. Vegapunk arrived just in time, allowing Sanji and Bonney to board the Vega tank safely. Seeing the shadow of her father protecting her, Bonney felt a wave of reassurance. Up at the laboratory level, Nami's group had placed Robin in a box to rest and ease transport. As they prepared to leave, Stussy insisted on staying, claiming she had unfinished business. Edison, sensing something, teared up and urged everyone to leave, respecting her choice. Nami bid Stussy a heartfelt farewell, hoping to meet again. Below deck, Saturn set down his wine glass, unable to linger in leisure any longer. At Zoro and Lucci's clash, the battle showed no signs of cooling. Lucci shoved Zoro back, then lunged forward, declaring no one could defy the world government. Meanwhile, Luffy faced a barrage of laser beams from the Golden Monkey, but laughed gleefully, constantly shifting forms to evade. The Golden Monkey tried to explain the government's purpose for being there, but Luffy brushed it off, unconcerned. Below, Saturn finally stirred from his position. Lucci charged Zoro, vowing to annihilate all who resisted. Zoro smirked, daring him to keep boasting, certain it wouldn't happen. The Navy's warship began to tremble as Saturn took action. The Golden Monkey apologized, retreating to focus on eliminating Vegapunk, unable to stay distracted. Luffy laughed loudly, proclaiming his mission was to protect that apple-headed guy. The battles escalated to a fever pitch as Saturn's area shook violently, causing his wine glass to topple. The Golden Monkey, frustrated by the little monkey, transformed into a beam of light and shot away. Suddenly, the four strongest presences, Golden Monkey, Luffy, Zoro, and Lucci, sensed something, halting their fights. Chopper's fur stood on end, and the group grew anxious. Jin detected an eerie force, suspecting a malevolent power was about to manifest. Dark clouds rolled in, shrouding the Sky Island in an apocalyptic veil. Doberman couldn't believe the strongest entity present was making a move. A pair of demonic eyes commanded the pacifistas to halt, and as the voice echoed, they froze completely. Vegapunk, baffled, realized the pacifistas were no longer protecting him, their control severed. On this island, no one held higher authority than the five elders. As the words sank in, a green smoke rose from the ground, terrifying the Navy. A magical circle with a 5-pointed star and the number 5 materialized, crackling with hockey-infused lightning that lashed out in all directions. The nearby Navy and Vegapunk, witnessing this anomaly, were at a loss. Sanji sensed an ominous magical force approaching, urging everyone to climb higher. Outside, a vice admiral broadcasted via Den Den Mushi, warning all Navy personnel that Saint Saturn, one of the five elders, had set foot on the island. Officers below Lieutenant Colonel were forbidden from looking directly at him. As the message spread, the magical circle exploded, upheaving the area. Vegapunk couldn't fathom that a five elder, the pinnacle of world authority, had come personally to destroy him. They had to escape immediately. Below, as a colossal shadowy figure emerged, Sanji broke into a cold sweat, warning everyone of what he was witnessing. Unbelievably, a monstrous entity was taking form, the supreme ruler of the world government. A hapless Navy soldier, unaware of the warning, curiously gazed at the damned monster, only for Saturn's glowing eyes to lock on him. The soldier's head exploded like a rotten egg. At long last, Saint Saturn, the supreme authority over science and defense, revealed his true form on the island. Inside the Vega tank, Sanji shouted for Vegapunk to swerve, narrowly dodging an attack. Above, the Golden Monkey roared in frustration, nearly hitting the tank. As the vehicle plummeted, the Golden Monkey prepared to strike, but Luffy appeared from behind, shocking him. The Golden Monkey couldn't believe Luffy had pushed past his Nika form's limits. Frankie yelled to act fast, and Luffy enlarged his arm for a strike. The Golden Monkey grazed Luffy's face with a beam, sending him spinning. Seizing the chance, the Golden Monkey aimed at Vegapunk, but Luffy unleashed a punch called Star. Though the Golden Monkey dodged, Luffy redirected the attack, landing a spinning blow that left the Golden Monkey reeling, crashing into a building. Luffy, exhausted, plummeted to the ground, unable to fight further. The Vega tank crashed, spilling its occupants. Sanji and Frankie shielded Bonney and Vegapunk, keeping them safe. Suddenly, razor-sharp claws lunged toward them. Facing an inescapable monster, Vegapunk asked, "You're Saint Saturn, aren't you?" Saturn replied calmly, "Indeed, I am. I thought you'd have been eliminated long ago." Bonney, panicked, recalled her father's memories. Saturn was the one who ordered Kuma's memories erased. Overcome, she broke free from Sanji and charged. Unable to accept her father's transformation into a mindless cyborg, she grabbed a sword and, fueled by love for Kuma, fearlessly attacked. Bonney screamed in Saturn's face, driving the blade into him. Saturn, caught off guard, hadn't expected such audacity from the girl. The Navy, hearing a five elder had arrived, buzzed with curiosity and fear, wondering how he'd appeared. Only admirals and colonels held their posts. Others retreated from the central area. Low-ranking soldiers had only seen Saturn's image, never his transformed state, and were baffled by the dark flashes in the distance. Even an admiral answered to a celestial dragon, and Saturn was the ultimate authority, surpassing even the saints of Meiji-Waze. Doberman seized the moment, using Rokushiki to ascend the island. After Bonney's daring attack, Vegapunk fretted over her recklessness. The vice admirals, stunned that a five elder was struck, ordered Bonney's execution. Sanji and Vegapunk urged her to retreat, but she refused. Suddenly, Saturn's eyes blazed red with fury. Silence, insects. If I didn't want to be stabbed, I'd have dodged. The radiant burst sent Bonney flying. Sanji, enraged, charged but was blasted back, injured and unable to stand. As Saturn withdrew the sword, his wound healed instantly, leaving Frankie in awe. Sanji clutched his head in agony, helpless to save Bonney. The vice admirals moved to capture Vegapunk and the Straw Hats, but Saturn halted them, berating their incompetence. You fools, don't scramble like idiots. Vegapunk can't escape. Prepare your weapons. He then mocked the Golden Monkey for his sluggishness. The Golden Monkey, covering his face, apologized, dazed from Luffy's brain-rattling punch and needing rest. Saturn glanced at Luffy, saying, I understand the reason now, I'll handle it. He aimed a pointed claw at Luffy, but Frankie's mechanical arm deflected it, saving him. Saturn praised Luffy's loyal crew, but Frankie, facing the terrifying monster, laughed proudly, honored that even the world's top powers targeted his rubber-headed captain. Saturn noted that Luffy and Bonney's involvement was unexpected, but they were now trapped on a doomed island, surrounded by the Navy. If they escaped by some twist of fate, he wanted to witness the miracle. Turning to Vegapunk, Saturn expressed regret for his betrayal, thanking him for his contributions to the Navy. Then, he demanded to know who should die first, promising a gentle death but ensuring they'd regret defying the world government. Saturn's eye beams knocked Luffy from Frankie's grasp, inadvertently waking Bonney. As Saturn gripped her tightly, he questioned why humans, when forbidden, always rebel. Bound by a mysterious force, the group could only listen. Vegapunk suggested it was likely a devil fruit power, not science. Bonney, gravely injured, glared at Saturn and asked if he'd killed her father. With disdain, Saturn replied, Kuma was born a slave, a remnant of a tribe guilty of heinous crimes. He was the last criminal of the buccaneer race, sentenced to extermination. Bonney's memories flooded back. From childhood, Kuma dreamed of being a hero, freeing the oppressed. He aspired to emulate the warrior of freedom, the sun god Nika, a figure he admired deeply, who acted fearlessly with a wide grin and rhythmic dance. Outside, the Navy aimed at Bonney, alarming Sanji and Vegapunk, who saw her as both a lovable child and a fierce spirit. Resigned to her fate, Bonney recalled asking Kuma if Nika would grant her freedom. He'd replied, Of course. Let's travel back to the South Blue, to the Sorbet Kingdom, 9 years ago. There, a large, dusty boy was born to a humble family, Kuma. The doctor vowed to keep his unique bloodline secret. Happiness seemed within reach, but 4 years later, the doctor returned, urging the family to flee as government agents investigated the hospital. Agents stormed in, guns drawn, forcing the family to comply. Kuma's father fought fiercely, claiming he alone carried buccaneer blood, begging mercy for his wife and son. Yet, fate was cruel. Taken to marry Jiwaze as slaves, Kuma's family was torn apart. His parents urged him to survive, no matter the hardship. Kuma became a slave to a celestial dragon, carrying heavy loads and enduring whips for the slightest misstep. His childhood was filled with pain and tears, caused by callous masters. When he reunited with his father, Kuma lied, saying his master treated him well to ease his father's worries. His father, Clap, revealed Kuma's mother had died, now in a better place. They prayed she'd found peace, unlike their hellish reality. Kuma broke down, recalling his mother's words to endure, believing the warrior of freedom, Nika, would save him. Clap, too, was certain Nika would lead Kuma to a sea of freedom, radiant with light, always smiling and moving to a joyful rhythm. But as Clap danced with his son, a gunshot rang out, ending his life, simply because a celestial dragon found him too noisy. In the West Blue, 11 years prior, the celestial dragons held a triennial human hunting tournament to test their marksmanship. That year's event took place in the God Valley Kingdom, unaffiliated with the government, chosen for its rich resources. After slaughtering the locals, their wealth would belong to the world government. The king, enraged at his people being turned into sport, was swiftly killed by Saint Garling, a top contender. The celestial dragons cheered, amused by Garling's strength, starting him at a handicap for added thrill. Female celestial dragons fawned over him. Besides locals, the hunt targeted troublesome slaves and criminals. Kuma, with his strength, broke his cage and escaped. Agents ordered other slaves to recapture him. Wandering alone, Kuma wept, overwhelmed by grief. The slaves found him, ignoring his pleas for mercy, knowing he'd face death if returned. Across the island, an agent reported to Saturn that they'd caught the escaped buccaneer child, Kuma, dragged back to avoid their own execution. High above, two figures appeared, Ivankov and Ginny. They were thrilled, as the hunt's centerpiece was a buccaneer boy with giant blood. Ginny introduced her big brother Ivankov, teasing his oversized face. Ivankov mocked the slave's pitiful state, while Ginny offered them a choice: die or join forces to survive against the government.
The hunt erupted amidst the decay of vile scum. The people fled in panic, while the hunters focused solely on capturing the rare rabbit, not to mention the ultra-rare one, each worth a fortune. They even set a condition: land a single decisive blow, and there was a chance to win a lavish prize for this year's champion. The Monmere family was eager to claim the title, with one of them warning him not to delude himself into thinking victory would come easily. Some overly excited celestial dragons fired their guns despite the hunt not yet starting, and one by one, slaves fell before their loved ones' eyes. Add to that the involvement of despicable nobles in this twisted game of amusement. With only an hour left before the hunt began, the people had to flee like rabbits. Meanwhile, at Navy headquarters, Garp was annoyed. He was on vacation, yet they wanted him to head to a remote island for a fight. Kong couldn't explain why, but pleaded for Garp's help, as an unconfirmed but potentially catastrophic threat loomed. Garp didn't care. It was the celestial dragons' outing, and their troubles were none of his concern. He'd warned them not to mess with that hornet's nest, a treasure of the pirate island. If they took it, the pirates would surely come to reclaim it. Kong wondered where Garp got such wild stories, but Garp laughed heartily, noting Kong had plenty of spies watching him. So why be afraid? Only then did Kong admit he hadn't considered one thing. Roger had made his move. At the mention of that name, Garp reacted strongly, eager to head there immediately. On the pirate island of Hachinosu in the New World, news of Jay setting sail spurred other pirates into action, as this was a major event that could shake the pirate world. At God Valley, the hunt officially began. Kuma was struck by an arrow in the back but stood firm, refusing to falter. They escaped to a safe spot near the coast where Ivankov witnessed an unprecedented number of warships surrounding the island. Jan was certain no one could leave alive, a brutal truth that would never be erased from history. The celestial dragons aimed at human targets without hesitation, treating it as entertainment and plundering resources. Lives were reduced to rabbits in this unjust hunt. They claimed they'd free everyone who survived 3 weeks until the festival ended. But it was a lie. None had ever survived past hunts. If they killed those who gave up in despair, where was the thrill? They wanted their prey to cling to hope and run, making the hunt truly exciting. Slaves could never win this filthy game, so the focus was on escaping. On the other side, Garling scored points with his cold-blooded sword, targeting high-value prey. Ivankov, with the help of a fishman with powerful shark jaws, broke free from chains. After being thanked, the fishman was overjoyed, having never been praised in his life. Ginny, however, was anxious. She deliberately leaked information, yet neither pirates nor the Navy had acted. The tournament's prize was a key to victory, one of the strongest devil fruits, allowing transformation into an azure dragon, and another, the Niku Niku fruit, capable of teleporting people to other islands. If anyone could eat one of these fruits, they'd have a chance to escape the Navy's encirclement. However, some slaves felt it was impossible as the prizes were kept at the island's center. To reassure them, Ginny revealed she was a master thief with exceptional eavesdropping skills. 2 weeks prior, she'd leaked this information. Certain pirates had taken notice. But she emphasized that such a plan required one of them to act as bait for the celestial dragons. Suddenly, Kuma volunteered, believing his large frame would help him survive longer than others. He didn't want to see anyone else die while they all fought to live. With a heartfelt speech, Ivankov laughed loudly, promising they'd escape together. Suddenly, from the coast, Navy ships were bombed. The Navy spotted Jay's pirate crew approaching from the eastern shore, trembling as they faced notorious pirates. Caught off guard, the Navy fired cannons in retaliation, but they were no match for the world's most infamous pirates. Whitebeard was furious, questioning when he'd become Gloriosa's subordinate. Stussy mocked them as failures, while Shiki declared whoever found the treasure first would claim it. Big Mom and Kaido were equally certain the treasure was theirs. Whitebeard thought Jay was foolish for coming here and losing sight of his goal, insisting they check the treasure first. Shiki, enraged, told Whitebeard to back off, accusing him of acting like the leader. Big Mom urged them to grab the treasure and leave quickly, while Kaido, with a serious expression, anticipated facing Roger, the one he most wanted to duel. This battle would decide the victor in a single day. When word spread that Jay's crew had landed, the Celestial Dragons panicked, fearing for their safety. Another report revealed more notorious pirates approaching from all directions. The Navy couldn't believe their confidential information had leaked. Roger's ship charged straight toward the island's western shore, with Roger barely containing his excitement after waiting a year for this. Gabon reminded Roger not to exploit his captain status for priority. Meanwhile, Garling ordered all troops to retreat to protect the Celestial Dragons, with the remaining Holy Knights ready to fight. The Knights felt humiliated that the Navy's encirclement was useless. The slaves, unaware of the chaos and the Navy, pale with fear at Roger and Rock's presence, wondered if they'd survive. Suddenly, Vice Admiral Garp's reinforcements arrived, boosting Navy morale. Garp, thrilled, demanded Roger's location. Amid the chaos, Ivankov and Kuma infiltrated and seized the two devil fruits. Unsure which was which, Ivankov told Kuma to eat one. As Kuma put it in his mouth, Big Mom suddenly charged in, shoving Ivankov aside to snatch the azure dragon fruit. When she tried to take Kuma's fruit, Ivankov stopped her, urging Kuma to eat it quickly to survive. Without hesitation, Kuma devoured the Niku fruit. Ivankov instructed that saving even one person from the island would be a victory. Suddenly, Saturn struck Kuma, recognizing him as a buccaneer. Saturn threatened Kuma, saying he'd live as a slave or die as time had decreed for inferior beings. Kuma rose, asking if Saturn was someone important. He couldn't understand why some were born significant while slaves were deemed meaningless from birth. If he had power, Kuma would use it to save as many as possible, like the sun god Nika. Saturn's face darkened, revealing that the Buccaneers were targeted for extinction because of that name. Yet, the events on this island would soon be buried in history's shadows. Later, in the southern Sorbet Kingdom, the government only published stories of Garp's heroism. The tabloid reporter Morgan's, a fraud, printed only what the world's elites wanted to hear. No one knew the true details of the legendary battle that transpired on that island. Ivankov asked Kuma how long he'd keep praying, while Kuma blamed himself for not saving more. Ivankov thought Kuma was being foolish, as he'd saved over 500 people in the chaos. Kuma's hands bore bear-like pads, which he believed were tools of freedom, a warrior of liberation like Nika. Ivankov was stunned to learn Kuma's family ran a church, explaining his kind nature. With that, Ivankov set sail to find his own freedom. Kuma vowed never to forget Ivankov's face, while Ginny chose to stay with Kuma to figure out her life's purpose. Jan bid them farewell and set sail. Seizing the moment, Ginny told Kuma to call her big sister since she was 4 years older, promising to earn money to support her big little brother. But when she tried wielding an axe, she tired quickly, leaving Kuma to chop a pile of wood, which they sold in town, escaping their past of vagrancy and theft. Suddenly, 2 nearby kids threw stones, doubting Kuma was only 9. Ginny, furious, taught them a lesson. but Kuma's kindness shone through as he used his powers to heal them, explaining Jinny's good heart. After the pain faded, the kids saw Kuma as magical. Back home, they ate cake together. Jinny, tiny as she was, devoured a plate and was still hungry, so Kuma gave her his. Seeing her eat so heartily, Kuma teased her bottomless stomach. Jinny learned Kuma had been enslaved at 4 like her. After feasting, Jinny sobbed, overwhelmed by peace and happiness. Kuma, recalling joyful days with his parents, couldn't hold back tears either. Though his parents were gone, Kuma now had a new sister to share joy with. Seeing Jinny cry, Kuma wept loudly. 8 years later, inside the church, elderly villagers sought Kuma's help to heal ailments with his powers. They reminisced about Kuma's father visiting often, only to vanish suddenly, leaving everyone worried. Now, seeing Kuma grown into a kind young man, they felt reassured. They praised his parents' talents, certain they'd be proud of their son, now a compassionate pastor at 17. The elders were grateful, believing God gave Kuma miraculous hands to save others, and asked him to heal on regular days too. Suddenly, Jinny stormed in, furious, declaring, "Healing's only on Sundays, no fees, and now you want more?" The elders chuckled, teasing the little lioness for her temper. At 21, Jinny was fiery but charming, with suitors lining up day and night to propose, though she refused them all. When the elders mentioned Kuma, she blushed, unable to fool them. They believed Kuma's gentle face alone brought peace. The elders admitted they wanted to pay Kuma but struggled due to heavy tributes demanded by the celestial dragons. The new king, Bakori, demanded excessive tributes, heedless of exhausting the elderly and weak. Those who couldn't comply were imprisoned and starved. Hearing this, Kuma told them to return next week for minor ailments or pain relief. As they left, an elderly woman gave Kuma and Jinny a gift bag, and everyone parted happily, promising to meet again. That night, Jinny sat outside, looking worried and scared. Inside, a giant bear paw formed from the villagers' pain Kuma had absorbed that morning. With a tense expression, Kuma took a deep breath and touched it, enduring excruciating pain. Outside, Jinny wept helplessly, hearing his anguished screams. Those Kuma healed were unaware he took their pain upon himself, which is why they returned weakly. Jinny carefully applied cold compresses to Kuma, who, with his kind heart, believed that if no one bore the pain, it would linger and haunt them. Kuma felt joy in easing their suffering, apologizing to Jinny for worrying her. He resolved to train and grow stronger. When food was mentioned, Jinny perked up, excited about the gifted treats. They ate dinner together, laughing and joking, planning a riverside barbecue the next day for the salmon migration season. 5 years later, at 22, Kuma and Jinny read the newspaper and drank coffee, living a normal life. But today was special. Jinny, mustering her courage, proposed to Kuma, determined to hunt him down. Though Kuma cared for her, his buccaneer heritage made him fear repeating past tragedies, so he declined to avoid bringing her misfortune. Reading the paper, Kuma grew excited about wanted posters for freedom fighters, sparking uprisings in several nations, led by none other than Dragon, whom Kuma admired greatly. He dreamed of sailing to save innocents like Nika, the warrior of freedom. Suddenly, young men brought fish to woo Jinny. Kuma, oblivious, accepted the gifts, annoying Jinny, who threw a bucket at his head, calling him an idiot. 3 years later, at 25, in the Sorbet Kingdom's center, royal soldiers arrested elderly villagers. Unable to ignore this, Kuma intervened. The soldiers claimed new laws allowed them to enslave southern residents at will. The word slave triggered memories of Kuma's family, enraging him. When an elder was choked, Kuma exploded, unleashing bear paw attacks that sent soldiers flying, saving the remaining villagers. He created a massive bear paw, causing an explosion that scattered the enemy. Inside the palace, a royal guard noted the law's unpopularity, but King Bakori was unconcerned, believing the masses would soon submit. From that day, the Sorbet Kingdom's northern district remained under royal control, while the south, where Kuma's church stood, became a lawless zone. Tributes were now per head, and Bakori wanted to discard the southern elderly to enrich the north. Kuma was imprisoned, confused to find Ginny there too. She'd caused a disturbance to demand the prisoner's release, defying her usual nature but finding it exhilarating. Kuma was furious, seeing the kingdom turning into a cesspool of corruption and poverty under Bakori, a puppet of the celestial dragons. Ginny warned that rebelling would mean facing the world government. Suddenly, armed rebels attacked the palace, forcing Bakori to flee. But he couldn't escape, as two commanders appeared, Ivankov and Dragon, declaring he'd never escape as the celestial dragon's lapdog. After Bakori's overthrow, his slavery laws were abolished, and a mysterious group saved the Sorbet kingdom from the world government's corruption. Dragon praised Ivankov's recruit, and Ivankov was certain Dragon would like Kuma. When the cell opened, Kuma and Ginny were shocked to see Ivankov and thrilled to meet Dragon, Kuma's idol. Ivankov invited Kuma to join them in changing the world, and Kuma eagerly agreed. Thus began the Great Pirate Era, with the Ohara tragedy spurring these freedom fighters to take up arms against the world government's decay. With Kuma's recruitment, the Revolutionary Army's three pillars grew stronger, adopting a new name that shook the world. Dragon noted they lacked funds, so they'd operate as mercenaries for now, fueling rebellion by training recruits in weaponry. He wanted a borderless force to liberate the world. Kuma asked where Dragon learned to use weapons, and he revealed he'd been in the Navy but left, finding no justice there. Ivankov remarked that whether in the Navy or the Revolutionary Army, Dragon was dedicated to saving people. Kuma assured Dragon he wouldn't disappoint. 5 years later, Kuma returned to his hometown to reunite with neighbors. In another kingdom, at 26, Ginny became the Revolutionary Army's Eastern commander. Excited to reunite with her lover, she faced jealous suitors claiming Kuma was thrice blessed to win her heart. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appeared from behind. At Baltigo, the Revolutionary Army's headquarters, Dragon received a call. Ginny had been kidnapped in a surprise enemy attack, leaving Kuma devastated and anxious. Later, a call requested aid for a coup in South Blue, suppressed by the military. Ivankov couldn't assist as his ship carried wounded from Wano. Kuma volunteered, but Ivankov worried about his recklessness since Ginny's capture. Blinded by rage, Kuma teleported to the battlefield. As the revolutionaries faced defeat, Kuma descended like a god of destruction, fighting to vent his anger. Ginny had been taken by a celestial dragon who forced her onto a government ship to be his bride, fueling Kuma's hatred. Using his Ursus shock, Kuma obliterated the royal forces, and with his aid, the people overthrew their corrupt king after years of struggle. The Revolutionary Army became heroes under their banner of justice. Kuma called Dragon, reporting he was safe but exhausted, planning to rest on the ship. 2 years after Ginny's abduction, a woman and a young girl named Bonney sailed toward land. Bonney loved the blue stones on her mother's face. At the revolutionary base, Ivankov rushed to tell Kuma that Ginny had called. Her familiar voice announced, "I'm back, Kuma," sparking joy after her long absence. Ginny revealed the celestial dragon abandoned her after she fell ill. Kuma worried about her condition, but Ginny didn't answer, saying she wanted to see everyone one last time, perhaps as a farewell. Kuma refused to accept this, demanding her location to find her, fearing he'd lose her forever. In a weak voice, Ginny apologized, saying she was dying and had little time left. She asked Kuma not to come, expressing happiness that his love for her never wavered. Kuma, unable to bear it, set out to find her, knowing she'd return to their old home. Locals confirmed Ginny was there, but warned it might be too late. Strangely, under sunlight, her face and body turned blue, hardening into stone. Kuma recalled their happy times in her marriage proposal, weeping uncontrollably as it remained unfulfilled. Ginny had burned through her life, crossing oceans under the sun to ensure her daughter's safety. Kuma prayed she'd rest in peace, vowing to raise Bonney. As a new father, he made mistakes, like with feeding, but the elders' guidance helped. They jokingly suggested a sturdy crib to prevent Kuma from accidentally crushing Bonney in his sleep. Watching Bonney guzzle milk, They predicted she'd inherit Ginny's appetite. Time passed and Bonney learned to walk and call Kuma dad, bringing him sacred joy. She grew into a beloved girl, cared for by elders when Kuma fought for the revolution. He even taught Sabo a few moves. But one night, Bonney developed stones under her eyes. The next morning, Kuma sealed the windows and doors to block sunlight, noticing the stones resembled Ginny's at her end. A doctor wanted to test Bonney in sunlight, enraging Kuma, who sent him away. Another doctor confirmed it wasn't lead poisoning but an unknown condition. Kuma left the Revolutionary Army to find a cure for Bonney's hereditary disease, unsure if it was right but driven by fatherly duty. Dragon urged him to live without regrets, promising to use his connections to find doctors worldwide. At 5, Bonney was teased as a dragon-eating monster for her stones. She retorted defiantly, flipping off the kids who brandished crosses like exorcists. Bonney kicked one, annoyed at being exorcised in a church. When she tried to go outside, Kuma pulled her back, as even brief exposure caused pain. Bonney knew this and only meant to scare the kids, not wanting to sadden her father. When teased about her stones, Kuma called them beautiful gems, delighting Bonney, who thought the kids were jealous. That night, Kuma asked where Bonney wanted to travel when healed. She mentioned a legendary sky island near the sun, hoping to meet Nika. Kuma's dream too. Kuma danced Nika's dance, planning to visit for Bonney's 10th birthday, or Fishman Island if she reached 12. A skilled doctor diagnosed Bonney with sapphire scales, a rare, untreatable disease where stones grew rapidly in natural light. Even moonlight. Even without light, life would fade. He apologized, saying Bonney had 5 years, not past her 10th birthday. Devastated, Kuma panicked as Bonney, thinking she'd slept, overheard. She asked about living to 10, and Kuma lied, saying her illness would end then, masking his grief. Bonney was thrilled, dreaming of adventures. Kuma agreed, hiding his pain.
A year later, elders sought Kuma's help as King Bokori returned, planning to burn dissenters alive in their homes, as he'd done 8 years prior. The village was engulfed in flames. Kuma rushed into the fire, saving an elder, and returned despite pleas to stop, hearing screams inside. In the palace, Bokori boasted that his East Blue House burning policy, praised by celestial dragons for cleansing, required demonic alliances for national reform. Below, furious citizens demanded he stop, but he ordered soldiers to shoot some as a warning, believing his sacrifices were just. Kuma appeared, charging with unmatched fury. At the church, people treated the wounded, urging Bonney to stay inside, away from moonlight. Worried, she prayed for her father's safety. Kuma defeated the soldiers, terrifying Bokori, who offered him control of the burned region. Recalling his mother's death in a fire, Kuma's rage surged. Bokori shot him, but it had no effect. Threatening world government retaliation, Bokori cowered as Kuma's bare paw enveloped the palace, exploding it. The Sorbet Kingdom's upheaval became known as the One-Man Revolution, as Kuma alone toppled a corrupt regime. At Miriéjois, a vice-admiral reported a new ruler in Sorbet. Saturn questioned who dared take the throne without approval. It was the people's will, electing Kuma as king, though he stayed in his church. They teased him as Bulldog, the true ruler and former king before Bokori governed. Despite poverty, the elders were rich in affection. They wondered where Bonney was, spotting a girl resembling Ginny, even prettier, running around the church. Kuma, startled, looked closely. The girl, puzzled by their surprise, said Kuma promised to sail to the horizon for her 10th birthday, so she trained. Looking in a mirror, she shrank, shocking everyone. It was Bonney, who had eaten the toshi fruit, controlling age, unbeknownst to her. She wanted to show off, worrying Kuma. An elder woman entered, mistaken for Bonney aged, but it was Queen Connie, Bulldog's mother. Bulldog, serving Kuma, revealed Bokori survived, spreading lies that Kuma burned villages and seized power, backed by the government, planning to reclaim the throne with warships. Seeing the elders' fear, Kuma vowed Bokori would never return, but he'd pay dearly if he did. Doing so would make Kuma a criminal, unable to stay. He asked Bulldog to become king and care for Bonney, promising frequent visits. Bonney, naive, asked where he was going, saying she'd miss him. Kuma confronted Bakuri's navy fleet, who branded him a tyrant. Enraged, Kuma destroyed 3 ships instantly. His bounty soared, marking him a notorious pirate. In the palace, Bonney refused food, missing her father. Connie apologized, noting Kuma became a pirate to save Sorbet. Bonney didn't care, eager to become a pirate at 10 when healed. Kuma sailed worldwide, seeking Bonney's cure, facing bounty hunters who fell to him, driven by hope to save her before her 10th birthday. On the Wind Grandma, he reunited with Dragon, who shared that Ivankov and Inazuma were imprisoned. Kuma had become a king, pirate, and tyrant, but the revolutionaries dismissed the propaganda. Betty jokingly asked to lead the Eastern forces, as Dragon reserved it for Ginny. Kuma didn't object. Dragon said Sabo and Koala wanted to see Kuma, now stronger. Kuma longed to rejoin, but couldn't due to Bonnie's illness. Dragon suggested Dr. Vegapunk, a Navy scientist whose lab had relaxed security after an incident. A quirky but reliable genius, Vegapunk gave Kuma hope. Dragon smiled, saying, "Let fates will decide." Back home, Kuma saw Bonney knock out a guard barehanded, showing her strength. He decided to take her to sea. At Navy Research Base 8, later Egghead, Kuma brought Bonney to Vegapunk. Both were amazed by each other's appearance. Bonney cheekily remarked on Vegapunk's huge head, but he brushed it off. Diagnosing sapphire scales, Vegapunk said Bonney had contained its spread, making a cure possible. Overjoyed, father and daughter danced. Vegapunk's access to unreleased technology, like stem cell regeneration, could heal her, though it was costly, akin to creating a new human. Kuma revealed his buccaneer heritage, surprising Vegapunk, who worked for the government but earned Kuma's trust via Dragon. Curious about his lineage, Kuma learned Vegapunk lacked a sample to study. Vegapunk offered to cover Bonney's treatment if Kuma became a cloning template for the Navy. Kuma asked what the clones would do. Vegapunk described laser-shooting robots to crush evil pirates, using Kuma's durable body to protect innocents. Convinced by Vegapunk's eccentric yet trustworthy dream, Kuma agreed, even if it meant working with a devil to save Bonney. At Mariageois, Saturn criticized Vegapunk for not exploiting the opportunity, measuring a weapon's value by its killing efficiency. Saturn proposed a plan, and Kuma agreed to become a pacifista, a saint. Vegapunk grinned, loving the name for his future warriors. Right after Kuma sought out Vegapunk to find a cure for his daughter's illness, the next day, Kizaru arrived at Vegapunk's research facility on business. Upon entering, he complained that the climate there was freezing, no different from Punk Hazard. Vegapunk, hearing this, introduced that this place would be the future of the world, his mind overflowing with ideas, so many that it was hard to think clearly. Kizaru knew this was true, yet Vegapunk didn't claim any ownership of the place. Kizaru pointed upward, hinting at a surveillance den mushy hidden above. Because of this, the government had been monitoring Vegapunk's conversation with Kuma. Negotiating secretly with a pirate was unacceptable, so Kizaru was dispatched there. Vegapunk was annoyed by his friend's tone, but Kizaru only apologized, saying it was his job. After establishing contact, Saturn emphasized that even if Vegapunk saw Kuma as a promising candidate, it was unacceptable because Kuma was a pirate with a 296 million berry bounty. Allowing a criminal to represent the Navy's cloning program would be an insult. Vegapunk, however, argued that science didn't care about appearances. If the cloning program succeeded, it would save countless lives. Saturn added 3 conditions for Vegapunk to conduct his research. First, Kuma must agree to become one of the 7 warlords. A few days prior, a vacancy had opened due to Fire Fist's defeat, causing a major uproar. So someone of Kuma's caliber would be a fitting replacement to suppress pirates. The second condition was that Kuma would undergo surgeries to become a human weapon for the Navy. Hearing this, Kuma grew curious about the changes to his body. Saturn confirmed it was true, as Kuma had all the qualities to become a formidable warlord, embodying a terrifying force against vile pirates worldwide. Kizaru interjected, saying Kuma would be a great asset to the Navy. Vegapunk, enraged, snapped at Kizaru's comment. Saturn continued, noting that Kuma wasn't like other pirates, having been part of the Revolutionary Army in the past. If Kuma accepted, precautions were needed to prevent him from betraying the government again. Thus, the third condition was that Kuma must relinquish his free will and personality. Vegapunk, furious, shouted that this condition was cruel, akin to a death sentence. If none of the warlords obeyed Saturn, stripping a pirate of their humanity was no different from creating a robot. Vegapunk couldn't accept what was essentially murder. Seeing his anger, Saturn reminded him, "Don't forget, you're a government scientist, so you have no right to oppose. These three conditions must be met if a criminal wants to save his daughter." Faced with this, Kuma could only hold his face in deep thought. Saturn stressed that the price was small compared to the costs incurred, as he had no obligation to save an ordinary child. Vegapunk couldn't accept such inhumane experimentation on a human, but Kuma suddenly pleaded with Vegapunk to agree. For so long, he had agonized over Bonney's seemingly incurable illness. Laughing through tears, he thanked Vegapunk, willing to accept any fate as long as Bonney could live. Meanwhile, the innocent girl played joyfully around the lab, unaware of the horrors her father would face. Saturn asked Vegapunk how long it would take to transform Kuma and cure Bonney. Vegapunk explained that treating Bonney's sapphire scales would take 6 months, plus another year before she could be exposed to natural light, totaling 1.5 years for a full recovery. Kuma's experiments would take at least 2 years. Hearing this, Kuma wept with joy, thanking God that his daughter would be saved before turning 10. Suddenly, Saturn asked, "How can we trust you'll obey after Bonney is cured, since she's the only thing keeping you here?" Kuma assured he had no intention of escaping, but Saturn declared the government would detain Bonney after her treatment. She'd be freed only after Kuma's personality was fully erased. Vegapunk shouted in rage, as this meant Kuma wouldn't see his daughter one last time after her recovery. Saturn coldly stated that the transformation would proceed continuously as Kuma joined the warlords to maintain order on the seas. After Bonney's recovery, all contact between them would be strictly forbidden to prevent their escape. If Kuma disobeyed, Saturn would ensure Bonney lived as a slave forever. Terrified, Kuma promised not to meet his daughter and made one request: don't let Bonney know about her illness or being held hostage. After the surgery, instead of keeping her in the cold lab, she should be sent to Sorbet Kingdom, where the government could guard her in a church. If Saturn agreed, Kuma would follow all orders. Saturn accepted, praising the simplicity of the request, noting that Bonney's location didn't matter as long as the government supervised. He looked forward to the next 2 years with anticipation. After the discussion, Kuma went outside to ask Bonney if she'd been naughty. Sentomaru's expression made it clear she'd caused trouble. Kizaru stepped out, looking displeased and ignoring his nephew. Kuma told Bonney he'd stay for the next 6 months, making her delighted. He lied, saying the scientists found he was ill too and needed tests. Bonney, overjoyed, introduced Sentomaru, who was exasperated by her antics. Knowing Bonney's personality, Kuma asked Sentomaru to watch her, and he reluctantly agreed, overwhelmed by her chaos. Meanwhile, Vegapunk was frustrated. He could now create invisible weapons, but his mind was flooded with ideas, needing someone to record them. He wished for clones to handle the workload, as the constant flow of ideas was driving him mad. A few days later, Bonney began her treatment. After leaving the lab, she dragged Sentomaru to play. Though busy, he couldn't resist her sad face and spent time with her. Kuma started his painful transformation process. Days passed, and the father and daughter made memories in the lab. Bonney treated Sentomaru like her horse, frustrating him, but he couldn't stop her. She gave Kuma a drawing she made, which brought him joy. Seeing their bond warmed Vegapunk's heart. They lived happily with the lab workers, eating and joking together, growing closer. Bonney suggested dancing Nika's dance, delighting Vegapunk. Sentomaru didn't want to join but couldn't refuse his uncle's request. Everyone danced joyfully like true friends. 6 months later, Vegapunk checked Bonney's progress, confirming she'd fully recover after another year of rehabilitation. Kuma, overjoyed, thanked him. Bonney asked if she could return to play after recovering, and Vegapunk assured her she could. The father and daughter returned to Sorbet Kingdom. Bonney asked if the sea was beautiful, and Kuma said it was, promising she'd see it soon. The villagers welcomed them, and Bonney bragged she'd be cured next year, delighting the elders. Suddenly, Queen Connie entered, thrilled to care for Bonney again. Kuma thanked everyone, asking them to look after Bonney, as his pirate status made staying unsafe. Before leaving, he said he wouldn't return for at least a year, but would write to Bonney daily. He bid farewell, promising they'd sail the seas together next time, though he silently wished it would come true. Alpha, a CP agent, approached Kuma, assuring him to entrust Bonney to her. She introduced herself as a nurse sent to care for Bonney during recovery, monitoring her temperature and medication under government supervision. The area was barricaded, allowing visitors only with identification. Alpha crushed a rock in front of Kuma, warning that a child's life was fragile. Kuma promised not to return, then thanked Bonney, saying he was happy to have brought her into the world. After Kuma left with a heavy heart, the pirate world was shocked to learn the notorious tyrant Kuma had become a warlord serving the government. Doflamingo was thrilled, eager for another villain in the game. Crocodile, uninterested, asked Robin if she'd dealt with someone who saw his rainmaking ship. Mihawk remained silent. Big Mom, seeing Kuma's size, asked who was stronger, her or Whitebeard, and Koby's answer was obvious. Koby laughed, happy for Jinbei, as the government found a replacement. Jinbei remarked that if he hadn't defeated Hannibal initially, this wouldn't have happened. He noted Kuma was a former king, adding to the warlord's ranks, signaling a shift in the pirate world. Boa Hancock deemed it irrelevant, uninterested in men. Moria was curious about Kuma's bear paw ability. Dragon, holding a newspaper, stayed silent, while Sabo was shocked, unable to believe Kuma would take orders from the government. Later, Kuma began attacking pirate ships and wrote to Bonney, saying his fame was growing, making it hard to find peace at sea. He was fine and searching for exciting travel spots for when she turned 10. Suddenly, the government ordered Kuma to Windmill Village, while in the forest, Luffy was playing, provoking a tiger into a frenzy. Don't forget to like and share this video if you find it awesome, and subscribe to my channel for more exciting One Piece videos. Thank you and see you next time.